Well, welcome everyone. This is Barb Tyson, and I want to welcome you to our 2021 Salty Dog Caribbean Rally briefing. And with us today, we have Bob Osborne, who is our acting rally manager, our Antigua port captain, and he is a Salty Dog board member. And we also have Bennett Cashton with us. He's also a Salty Dog Sailing Association board member and a veteran blue water cruiser. And just a couple of reminders, as always, if you've been to any of our webinars, we like you to keep muted and keep your video off for those with low bandwidth. Helps us keep things moving along. If you do have any questions, though, go ahead and put them in the chat box that I've opened. And Bob and Bennett are going to address those probably at the end of their briefing. So now I'm going to go ahead and hand things over to Bob Osborne.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. I'm excited to talk a little bit about what we're planning to do on this run to the Caribbean. I just want to get let me share my screen here. Okay, Barb, does that look good? Hank, can you see?
Sorry, I was muted, but yes, that looks great.
Great. Well, I'm excited to be here. I just got back from the main rally, which was a terrific success. We had a wonderful time and we're already planning for next season. It's interesting. There's been a great deal of interest in our rallies of late, and and we're running considerably ahead of last year in terms of the Caribbean, but a lot of people are really uncertain about what the future brings. And so I thought what we would do today is I'll be speaking about the departure activities in Virginia, and also a little bit about the plans for once we arrive in Antigua. And then Bennett is going to talk about what we think is going to happen in terms of restrictions. I think a lot of this coming season will be like will have to do with exactly how the whole COVID thing unfolds in the Caribbean. But we've got several months to go and things are becoming clearer. And so what I want to do now is to just sort of set the stage a little bit. Of course, we're talking about the Salty Dog Rally to the Caribbean. There's two destinations that we specifically address. One is the Bahamas and the other is the Caribbean. Today's discussion will be focused exclusively on the Caribbean. Just to talk a little bit about dates, the plan is to meet October the 28th in Hampton. There's information on making reservations at the Blue Water Yachting Center on our website. We'll spend a couple of days focused on captain's briefings, weather briefings, provisioning, runs to get propane, so forth and so on. So also, we're very excited to announce that we're going to be having a search and rescue helicopter demonstration with the Jayhawk helicopter. That's an amazing experience. If you haven't seen that, they come so close that you'll actually get salt spray on you if the wind's blowing from the right direction. We'll have our annual Halloween party and happy hours, departure dinner, and so forth. And the nominal departure date is November the 1st. We'll be doing a number of in-person events as we get ready for it in what we call the Dawg House, which is a nice meeting room in Hampton. This is a picture I took a couple of years ago with the Coast Guard demonstration. This was actually an anniversary edition helicopter. Yes, they even have those, as opposed to the normal orange and white. And I just want to remind everybody that we have a very large support group dedicated to keeping everyone safe. Certainly, Bennett's going to be talking about COVID-related activities, but there's a lot that goes into producing a successful rally, keeping everyone in touch, making sure they have the proper safety equipment, and we have several, well in excess of a dozen people that pay attention to what's going on out there and keeping everybody safe. So now I'd like to turn it over to Bennett, who's going to talk a little bit about what we see is going on in the whole area of COVID and safety related to that.
Bennett, you're still muted.
Bennett, I'm not hearing you.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, folks. Give me 1 second. Bob, I was gonna do the passage stuff, but would you like me to do COVID first? Is that?
You can do it in whatever order. I'm sorry,
Right.
I was so focused on COVID because I know a lot of our viewers.
All right, let me just switch to the COVID. I'll do the COVID stuff. It's easy to switch. So let me do that
Okay.
right now.
All right.
And don't let me forget the other part. All right. Okay, sorry about that. We had a little switcheroo there. So let me talk a little bit about what we see for 2021 fall rally. So we are about 3 months from the start, and the situation is still pretty fluid. So we are going to adopt the policies for the events and for the rally, for the pre-rally events and the rally itself. And we'll do it in time, but it's still in flux. But I have to say the message of this talk is the last point. Please don't delay in getting a vaccine. So I just want to put this a little bit in perspective where we came from. We came from spring of 2020 when we did the homeward bound flotilla, which you're all probably aware of, very successful, but very few tools for COVID. We did the summer rally last year, and that was based on state to state testing requirements, and that was successful. Then we did the fall rally last year, and there weren't a lot of boats because, well, they just made a lot of sense to maybe rethink it. And we had a quarantine and pre-departure testing strategy that worked really well. And then finally, in the spring of 2021, the East Coast Rally home. Again, no vaccines yet, just starting to come around. And this summer, as you probably know, we had very successful Delmarva and Down East rally where vaccination was required for those that could be vaccinated, and that was very well received. So what goes into the policies? Well, it's the science. We've heard that before, but it's true. The CDC guidelines, the state regulations, the destination requirements, they all go into this thinking, and it starts with the pre-departure activities too. What about what's going on in the Caribbean? Well, we're going to talk about that. But really what we're doing is we're focusing this at the at-risk population, which is you, going offshore for 8 to 21 days with no medical services available. And this alone should push you to vaccinate. So what do we know today? We know that new COVID infections and illnesses are still possible, especially for the unvaccinated. We know the number of infections in the US and in the Caribbean is rising. It's up to 4 times the rate of just recently. Delta variant is really a factor. We have more viral load and more infections because of the Delta variant. The Delta variant can produce infections in the vaccinated, but it's the symptomatic breakthrough infections. They're uncommon, and serious infections are rare. I'm getting a little feedback, by the way, so if someone is not muted, I'd appreciate it if you guys would just check your mute status. Thanks. So the last point, other variants are on the horizon, so we really have to be vigilant. For those that are vaccinated, just ignore this slide for a second. For the unvaccinated, these were the personal reasons that you folks had, and they ranged from I don't like shots, it's an emergency vaccine, I can wait until it's approved, I'm not sure everything I heard was right. And this one, the I will try to wait until others get it so that we're all saved by achieving herd immunity. But what's the reality? The reality is that we're not near herd immunity. If more people were vaccinated, there'd be no need to worry about the variants. So this means that you need to do it. We need you to do it. Your loved ones are at risk, so you need to do it. And so please reconsider that the vaccines really are safe and effective. Okay, that's my editorial for now back to facts. All the crew going south is at risk for going offshore. That's just a fact. The unvaccinated will be at higher risk. So those that cannot be vaccinated, you really should seriously consider the risk and benefit of participating. The famous nothing sails to weather better than a 707 maybe for you. But we're going to be considering the best options and requirements as the situation evolves. So there are different requirements for the unvaccinated, most likely, and that will probably include exclusion from Hampton events, pre-departure quarantine and testing or requirements. So we want you all to get there safely. We think we can do it with including the unvaccinated, even those that are by choice, but hopefully there's just a few of you. Hopefully it's not a significant number. What's going on in Antigua and Barbuda? Well, we're going to keep you apprised of all of that. So it's going up. In the last few weeks, it's clear. Why is that? Because the vaccine rate is low and there's the Delta. So vaccination rates are lagging in Antigua. They're under 40%, and that increases the risk for spread and for developments of variants. As of last week, Delta identified in Antigua and identified in the US Virgin Islands. Means bars and restaurants in Antigua are possibly going to require vaccinations just to enter. They're talking about that as a August 1st requirement. I predict, unfortunately, it's going to get worse, and that other
Bennett, okay, never mind.
Okay, how far did I get?
We only lost the last sentence.
Okay, sorry about that. Did that just mute? Let me back up one slide. Not sure why it muted. Okay, you guys can hear me, hopefully? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, great.
Cheers. Thank you. All right, vaccines. The vaccine rates are lagging and they're under 40% in Antigua. I don't know if you heard this, let me say these points, so I'll just let you read them. I did say them, so I'll spare you. We really hope that things are going to turn around, but it's going to take some effort and some prayer, really. What about the rest of the Caribbean? First of all, there's just a problem with the vaccines being distributed. Rates are too low. Quarantines are going to probably be required. Expensive testing is going to be required for unvaccinated. Travel and participation restrictions are likely to be in effect, and that's going to be less so for vaccinated travelers. Not to mention the medical care that's there, and that medevac may not be possible, though I just read that MedJet may start allowing for some coverage while you're down there. Okay, this is a fact slide that I just saw yesterday. I thought I'd include it, and that is that the percentage of population in the Caribbean who are vaccinated, it gets dismally low in places you're not going to be, but in the sweet spots here, we're talking at pretty low rates right now. The other fact that I'm really concerned about is this uptick now. This is really what it's all about. In the last couple of weeks, the daily new cases in the Caribbean have more than doubled from what they were on any other week in the past. And we all have seen these kinds of curves. So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but this is the start of the low vaccination rates plus Delta taking effect. It's unfortunate, but it's true. So we're going to set the requirements in time, and your vaccine is really needed. So what does it mean? What does all this mean for us right now? Well, here's what I think. We are all disappointed the situation is not better down there and here for that matter. Vaccines are game changers. It's like a harness and a tether being introduced on your boat. Vaccines are no-brainers. Everyone should get vaccine. Some unvaccinated, like those with medical reasons or too young, will be allowed to participate most likely, but the rules and regulations are going to be applied to allow that safe participation. And then finally, the few who choose not to be vaccinated, we will probably allow the participation, but we're going to institute rules and requirements in place that will keep everyone safe, including and especially the unvaccinated. And that might include avoiding Hampton or the events in Hampton, quarantine and testing. So that was going to be the last slide, but I thought I would put a little bit more upbeat slide for the last slide. So thanks for listening, and we'll take questions at the end. Bob, I'll turn it back to you.
Actually, Bennett, I think I want to address just a couple of questions that have popped up. In particular, one of the questions was if I'm vaccinated, if I've had COVID, do I need to get vaccinated? And I think the answer is probably you should anyway, because, for example, in St. in St. Lucia, you have to show proof of vaccination to the point of where you actually have to wear an armband. I think someone's unmuted. If you could remute and use the chat, that would be great.
Yeah, I agree. It's recommended. I think it's, pretty much all the experts say that even if you've had it, there's a certain time period. If you've recently had it, don't get vaccinated. I don't think, I'm not sure the exact amount of time, but if you've had it in the past, you should be vaccinated, no question.
Another question, Bennett, has to do with a photo of the vaccination card work, proof of vaccination ID, a CDC, and we don't have an app for that, and it's unlikely we'll have that anytime soon. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Pretty much everybody gets a card when they're vaccinated, so at the minimum, I'd keep the card. Recently, I read that don't laminate your cards, because sometimes they use the same card for the follow-up shot on the second or on the even third so you're probably better off not laminating, but you can keep those. And I'm sure as the time goes on, we're going to have more that we hear from the individual Caribbean nations on that.
Okay, well, I think that pretty well covers that, most of the questions. And so why don't you move on to the passage information?
All right, let me just flip over if I could. I'm just trying to share my screen again. Okay, I think that's it. Okay, am I shared, Bob?
You're good.
Thanks. Okay, let's move on. So here we go. So why listen to me about the passage, the actual passage? These are reasons why not to listen to me as well. So I've done the passage 11 times in both directions total. That's not a whole lot. A lot of people have done a lot more. I've done them mostly, if not all, almost all with the SDSA and the Salty Dog Rally. And that's a plus and a minus. I haven't experienced, except for once, the North Atlantic and the Northeast departure, like from Newport. But I prefer this passage, and you'll see why in just a moment. I started this sort of study of the passage in 2011 when I first got interested. We did our first passage in 2013. 2011 has significance, as we're going to talk about in a second. And also, you could listen because I believe there's no one right answer how to do this, like everything, but there are a number of good options to make a success. So in yellow there, highlighted, is in 2012, Don Street put out his sort of summary of what he had been saying for a number of years about the best place to depart from. And it was in response to the lousy 2011 migration, especially from the New England area, just where it's a series of not great events. He has this to say: going south in late fall from New England ports as Newport by way of Bermuda is basically playing Russian roulette. So, that's a little hyperbole, but I think it's true that statistically, there's a little more likelihood of having lousier sort of gale, winter stormish conditions in the upper North Atlantic in this region, which we will not be in. So that's the main point of this whole thing. And he recommends, as he said, I think in the 60s, somewhere in the mid 60s, he recommends setting sail from Morehead City or the Chesapeake. And from there, head east-southeast until the butter melts and the trades fill in. That's between 66 degrees and 65 degrees west, going in that sort of Highway 65 approach. And when you get to 65, you start thinking about turning south. And that's the tried and true method that we are all relying on. So it's basically don't start too north and don't start too south. Once again, Route 1, the one from the New England area, includes a little bit of a higher risk of significant gales. Not to say that you're not going to get bad conditions from where we're leaving from. South of both Beaufort and Morehead, we are a little bit too south. So as a consequence, you're going to have to go upwind. And this is really unpleasant, not the place to go. So this is sort of the middle sweet spot. Also, just note, there's no reason to go south in the ICW from Hampton to get southing in. When you do that, you're going south, but you're going west at the same time. So all that west is not heading you in the direction you want to be, and it's giving you less opportunity to get east as you get further south. Finally, going to the ICW or coastal to Florida, and then through the Bahamas, the Thorny route, it's not a recommended way of doing it, at least for us. So there's your run line, Hampton to Antigua, 1450, something like that, 1400 nautical miles, 1450 nautical miles. And you generally do not sail the run line, although in 2013, I was able to because the winds basically started northwest and then they shifted north and then they shifted northeast. And then we had a really nice run very close to the run line. But this is Bob's spaghetti predict wind that he put in his blog that really depicts nicely. This was last year. So here's the run line. Here's some of the spaghetti tracks that I just described as maybe being near the ideal. Staying on the run line if you can, but most people are going to do their easting early and they're going to get to that Highway 65 and then they're going to turn south. So some boats had to go north and then east. It really depends on the conditions, your boat, what Chris Parker at Marine Weather Center says. These are all factors that are going to go into it. I hate to simplify it. We can talk about that for hours. So we're not going to. No, November 1st. It's a good time to go. The hurricane season is over. It's more, the insurance says it's over, but you can have some late hurricanes and tropical storms. Weather windows can occur. They do occur, and we wait for them. So that's great. You can always get a weather window if you wait long enough. Relatively early for winter gales we talked about. The strategy after a cold front comes off the U.S. East Coast is you wait for the winds to, the west winds to start veering, and you ride those veering winds on a course that is to the east. The other factor is if winds are southwest, you can get your early easting in, which is great. If you get your early easting in on that starboard tack, And then you're in a good position to head south as the trade winds fill in. What's the bad news? Well, we said that the hurricanes can occur. They're not zero. Weather windows are not guarantees. Forecasts are reliable for only a couple of days, not for the whole passage. We're not immune from gale force winds. Waiting on a weather window to improve is a really frustrating event. We've experienced that. Those that have experienced that know that that's the case. And sometimes easting just doesn't come easily. If winds are on the nose, then you have to gauge your fuel consumption and the conditions. It's a very multifactorial juggling match that Chris at Marine Weather Center will help you with along the way. And last piece I want to talk about is the Gulf Stream. So the Gulf Stream is that river in the sea. It goes 2 to 5 knots in general. It flows from the north, flows towards the north and then northeast and then east. That should be. The weather in the Gulf Stream, it can be miserable with squalls, with really lousy waves, steep and squared waves that are produced by wind against current. It sets you north when you're crossing in the area that we cross. It was said that the crossing is best in the Hampton area, not so much because it's narrower there, which it is, but also look at how close it is from your departure point. So within a day, you're in the Gulf Stream, and that means that the weather routing and the forecasting is crisp then. This is a really, you'll get a nice surgical route to get across the Gulf Stream in safety with Chris Parker's forecasting and routing. So fun with meanders. What are meanders? These are the eddies that you hear about. Just very briefly, I always find that sometimes I can't remember which way the eddies go, but if you picture the Gulf Stream like a piece of taffy, and then eddy is being pulled off to the south, and as it's being pulled off, you preserve the direction of the flow. So when it's completely pulled off, you can see, oh, that's why it's counterclockwise. So that's the way I remember it. Whereas the warm eddies, the ones that are the north, they are clockwise. So why is that important? It's important because they act as slingshots to get you on your way. And when you pick a path, or when Chris gives you a path, it will be with attention to the eddies. And it's kind of fun to be able to pick a path that will get you a slingshot instead of current against you. So that's kind of fun with eddies. What about Bermuda? Bermuda is a strategically important run from the northeast, but I don't view it as a great planned stop. I would say keep it in the equation mainly for urgent situations. This kind of summarizes Don Street's view. Money in Bermuda disappears as fast as an ice cube on a blacktop road at high noon in the tropics. Plus, there's no chance for your crew to jump ship, an all too common occurrence. So those are wise words. However, Bermuda is a good safety net to know that it's there. It forces you to do your easting. If you stay close to Bermuda, to the opportunity to get to Bermuda, it allows you to refuel, it allows you to reprovision, it allows you to crew change if you plan for it, but you're going to miss Bob's Antigua arrival events. And the final reward, the trade winds. So this is what you look like when you leave, and this is what my crew looked like when we got to Antigua. It's a whole different situation when you're in the trade winds. It's really wonderful when you feel those trade winds starting to fill in. There you are in the Caribbean. You made it, and congratulations. So I'll turn it back to Bob now. If I can get the stop share going, it's all yours, Bob.
Thank you, Bennett. That's great. And we're going to address a few more questions as we get a little further along at the end, but I want to keep moving so that we don't run too late. Let's see. So Bennett has talked about getting there, and the point about Antigua. Like, why do we go to Antigua? The reason for that is that it is the easternmost point, more or less, of the major islands in the Caribbean. The only one that's really much further east is Barbados, and that's way down at the bottom. And I want to just give you everyone a sense of scale. I've given some distances here, so there's a lot going on this page. But basically, if you went all the way down from Antigua to Grenada, back up to the U.S., back up to Martinique, and then, excuse me, St. Martin, and then over to the American Virgins, you will cover about 800 miles. Not everyone will do that. I probably won't go any further than, say, down here to the Grenadines. But the point is, it is not very big. The whole area is pretty compact, and most of your sailing is 50 miles or less. And what makes it such a great area is just the tremendous variety of cultures and so forth. And Bennett has already shown this picture. Here in the background is Falmouth Harbor, which during the British Age of Sail was sort of the commercial harbor. And here in the foreground is English Harbor, which is where the British Navy was and where most of our activities will occur. This is what the dockyard looks like when there's nobody there, which is about what it looks like right now. It is a beautiful site. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's been totally redone, and it's not touristy at all. It's really true to its marine roots. This is a picture of all the boats in this picture, with the exception of this big schooner, are Salty Dog boats, and this was taken by one of our members with a drone. And so when we get there, we're pretty much the whole thing. This is, we tie up along here in Nelson's Dockyard, Med Mooring, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. I just want to point out one thing in particular. When I first went to the Caribbean, I wondered, you're moving from country to country, it's got to cost a fortune, but everything is a lot less expensive than you might expect. And without going into any specific details, for a monohull, it's less than $1 a foot at our rates. They give us quite a good discount. And if you're a multi-hull, less than $2 a foot. And in fact, having just gotten back from Maine, my boat's still up there. I can tell you I paid more for moorings in Maine than you pay for dockage in Antigua. A bit about Med Mooring, without specifics at this point, and if anyone wants to in the future, I can go through a real blow by blow about exactly how to do that. But basically, you drop an anchor, you back up to the slip, you throw a line to somebody, and they tie you up. It sounds a lot more complicated than it is. For sure, you're going to want to make sure that you have your deodorant up to date on that first try, but it's really not tough. It is a beautiful place. It is absolutely stunning. It's been remodeled to modern standards, and they've done a lot to preserve the beauty of what it was back then, without all the misery that the British Navy had to incur without air conditioning, without vaccinations against tropical diseases and so forth and so on. I'm not going to go into the specifics except to say that we have 10 days of events. We have several at the Admiral's Inn. North Sails will be doing a special event for us. That's a free one. Antigua Yacht Club throws a party for us. That'll be free. The Antigua and Barbuda Royal Naval Yacht Club, that's my favorite group in Antigua. You can't beat it for $2. You can participate in a wonderful traditional toasting of the Queen. Let's see, there will be other activities at the Antigua Yacht Club, including a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner. An awful lot of our members stick around until after Thanksgiving. Some don't go home at all. They have their family come down. We'll have a tour of the ruins with a special rum, beach parties, hikes, a ladies' lunch, and then New Year's Eve fireworks. There's will be a lot of information available to you through Chris Parker, and he will be our eyes and ears in terms of getting us safely down there. If you haven't worked with Chris Parker, I expect you will after participating in the rally. There's a number of resources. I'm a particular fan of the NV charts. They're out of Germany. They're very detailed for the area, and I'll show you a little bit about that in a moment. And it's always worthwhile having the Doyle guides available to you as well. If you have Navionics, which most of us do on your, I have an Navionics chart plotter. This is the way English Harbor looks. If you use the charts I'm recommending here on the right, you can see there's considerably more detail, and also in Falmouth. Talk a little bit about the Admiral's Inn. They are really kind of our shoreside support group. They're very, both the owners have been very supportive of us. And I would encourage you to do what we're probably going to do, and that is to take a few days and stay at the inn when we get there. They give us some very nice special rates. And in the case of Pandora, I have both of my crew members are likely to have their spouses come down and join us for the activities. It is a very reasonably priced vacation. They have excellent restaurants early in the season. They have a wonderful infinity pool. We'll be having our arrival dinner there, a spa, and their introductory rates for us start at 140 US plus taxes. So it is very reasonable this time of year. This is Paul and his sister, Astrid, who have been very supportive of us over the years. That's me presenting them with a rally flag. Hopefully this year we won't need to use our masks, but this was the arrival dinner last year. And we have lots of activities going on. This is at the yacht club where they had a nice appetizers and so forth. Maybe we can convince North Sails to do a crab race for us again. That was a hoot, but they really do just a wonderful job with wine and beer and rum prizes for those that won the crab race. 2 years ago, the Nelson's Dockyard threw us a party. I was really shocked. 120 people, they have a free dinner for everybody with rum punch and wine and so forth. I wouldn't expect it after the very difficult year they've had to do free, but they're very generous in how they position it. I talked a little bit about the Tot Club, and we'll be doing that as a group, toasting the Queen and carrying on a tradition that was part of the British Navy for 100 years. They even have their own official rum, which you have to be a member of the club, which I am, or to be a part of a Tot in order to even to have that. If you become a member of the club or show up at the right time, you might find yourself, as we did, on a 150-foot schooner enjoying an evening Tot. But one way or the other, rum is a big part of the Caribbean, whether you're in Antigua or elsewhere, and being given a tour of the ruins and talking about the history of the island is a real treat. A number of us have been there many times. Bill Woodruff on Kulunamu, he's right now in St. Lucia, and a great source of information for us. He will lead, I'm sure, a discussion about where to go from here, which is something we've done every year. For sure, if you go home for the holidays, make a point of coming back in time for New Year's Eve. You will not ever probably have an experience quite as impressive as sitting on the bow of your boat in Nelson's Dockyard and watching fireworks. And there's no question that the biggest part of being involved with the rally is what happens when you get here, and making friends. We have made friends over the years in Salty Dog. And honestly, Brenda and I wouldn't ever have gone to the Caribbean if it weren't for Salty Dogs. And being there and enjoying the weather is a big part of it. I am a yacht spotter. This is Lionheart, one of a number of big J's from the 1930s. They are pretty much all there every winter. It's hard to imagine that any one person can own boats that look like this, but you may have heard of the Maltese Falcon, one of the largest yachts in the world. They're a regular there. Antigua Yacht Club has been very supportive of us over the years, and they've come up with a special program this year. They have a great small boat sailing program, and they're offering us special Salty Dog rates. Their member benefits include everything: discounts at the clubhouse restaurant, the use of their boats, and so forth and so on. And it's only $60 a month per couple. And it's a really great way to do it. I personally will join for the month that we're there in the beginning, and then we'll just see where it goes from there. But it's been difficult down in the Caribbean for these businesses. This is as many yacht clubs to not-for-profit. And we want to support a club that supports us. They have been wonderfully supportive to us over the years. And if you enjoy small boat sailing, they have lots of opties, and they also have lightnings and so forth and so on. So it really adds immeasurably to your visit. This webinar will be posted later, or you can just copy down this information and it'll be on our website. But you can send an email to Nisi. She's the office manager, and arrange for your special membership. It's not available on their website. You just have to ask for it. It's AntiguaYachtClub.com. Where do cruisers fit into Antigua? You know, there's certain areas we go where you kind of feel a little bit like if you don't have a 100-foot powerboat, they don't care about you. That is not the case in Antigua. The gentleman in the middle is Minister Fernandez. He's the Minister of Tourism, and he makes a point of showing up every year for our events. Franklin Braithwaite is on the right is the Commodore. He's also president of the Marine Trades Association of Antigua and Barbuda, and runs a canvas loft and sail loft in English Harbor. Minister Fernandez has said multiple times that of all the different categories, the mega yacht crew and charter group, people who come in on cruise ships, people like us spend the most money. We are the most valuable to them on an annual basis, and they really think we're important. So you will definitely get support. Once you're in Antigua, it's a reach everywhere. And I encourage you to begin your season in Antigua, work your way down the chain as far as you want to go. And then on the way home, go up to the Virgin Islands, British or American. It's a downhill run. It's short line of sight sailing. The waves can be big, but the periods are long, and you're going over them on a reach. So it's really easy sailing, if a little intimidating at times, because the waves are pretty large. So you head south early in the season and then move on the way north, perhaps up to the Bahamas and home. I'm not going to go into much detail except to show you just a couple of pictures of this. Is one of my favorite areas. This is one of the French islands just south of Guadeloupe, and you'll never beat the feel of being in the French islands with the beautiful beaches. Here's Dominica with in this part of the Caribbean, the mountains are so high, 4,000 feet, that they're eternally shrouded in clouds, which means rainforests. And you can see the people in the foreground. These are beautiful waterfalls, pretty spectacular. The local crafts are really impressive in Dominica and worth viewing and going to see. Renting a car in the multiple islands. Every week in the various islands, there are great markets available to you. If your interest is in rum, you've gone to the right place. Martinique is probably the best island for rum, and you can do some tours of those, and some of the plantations are very impressive. You can see the mountains in the background here. This is Fort-de-France, a contrast of new and old just by turning to one side, and of course my favorite, baguettes. I don't know what's going to happen this year with Carnival, but this was 2 years ago. Actually, we were there right before, like 2 weeks before COVID hit the island. And as you can imagine, what might have happened if it had been, if it had hit a few weeks earlier. And as Bennett said, vaccination rates are quite low in some of these islands. In Martinique, it's under 20%. And one of the things that I heard recently from several cruisers that are in St. Lucia is if you're vaccinated, there's no quarantine. In some islands, like the French islands, you don't have to pay for a PCR test, but they're probably going to ask you to take one, or at least they are right now. Other islands, it could cost more than that, $200 or whatever. I hope that they will be able to have Carnival this year. The lady on the right is the most creative use of pop tops and bottle caps from beer I've ever seen. And the guy on the right, well, he kind of speaks for himself. Whether you're looking for a metropolitan area with lots of boats, or you're looking for something that's a little off the beaten path, or you're looking for a taste of a real 5-star resort with a spectacular pool, these are all available. This is a small little tiny harbor in St. Lucia, Marigot, and for $30 a day, you can pick up a mooring and use the facilities as though you were staying in a $500 a night room. Pitons from your boat, pitons from your wine glass, beautiful beaches, And I'm going to talk just for a moment about getting work done in the Caribbean. One of the nice things about Antigua is you can get anything fixed, and you might very well need to have some stuff fixed. But as you get further down, Beckway is a wonderful place to have work done. This is Pandora's dinghy, and I made an appointment. I pulled it up literally under a palm tree that afternoon. They patterned it, and the next day I had this, all for under $1,000. Now I won't say the motor cover and the seat, those were a few days later, but to get that done in 24 hours was pretty spectacular. Grenadine sail and canvas is the game I would recommend. I paid full price. They didn't give me anything to get me to say this. There's a lot of people available down there to do varnish work too. This is a guy I've used named Winfield. I talked to him actually just the other night. This is his phone number and his email. He does amazing work, and his prices are quite reasonable. All in all, the Caribbean is a fabulous place. I just cannot tell you. I've sailed everywhere from Eastern Maine all the way down to Key West. I've been through Cuba, most of it actually, through the Bahamas for 4 seasons. My heart is in Antigua, that's for sure. You will not see a better sunset than from Shirley Heights. And whether you're a kid or an adult, I have no doubt you are going to make friends that you will have forever. And this is the group that was down there last fall, and they sent me this picture to make me feel bad. But I really wish we were there, and I'm so looking forward to our next visit to Antigua. So this is my contact information. I don't have any problem with people calling me or emailing me. I have a blog that I've been keeping for over 10 years that has a lot of information on the Caribbean. You can search by map, by individual island and so forth. And I want to draw attention to the Caribbean Rally Forum in particular. Bennett may want to say a word or two about that. It is on our website, and that's going to be our primary way to answer questions as they come up. It's very efficient. We used it for the main rally. It went really, really well. And it's easy. You post a question, and anyone who's attached to it will get a ping. And Bennett and myself and others will be following it to make sure everybody has the information that they need. Salty Dog is primarily run by volunteers. There's several dozen people that make this organization happen. And as rally director, I can tell you, the attention to detail is really remarkable. And I think that we have, I just don't think you could find a better way to head to the Caribbean. So with that in mind, I'm going to hang this up for the moment and go back to the screen with participants and check the text, where are we here on chat? Let's see. Oh, Barbara, I'm not seeing chat here.
It's up on my screen, and we have a number of questions and comments in there, so
Okay,
I know other people are seeing it. You have it? Okay.
The question in the chat is, French islands in particular seem to have the strictest rules regarding COVID. Have you heard anything to indicate whether they'll allow American sailors this winter? The current information we have is that the French islands are offering COVID testing. People who are vaccinated still have to be tested. The tests are free, I heard. And that with that, if it comes negative, you are good to go. If you're not vaccinated, you will be subject to full quarantine, if not worse. There's another question. Bennett, you want to add to that?
No, I think the only thing I would say is that everything being in flux means that in the next 3 months things can change, obviously. But yeah, and as you mentioned, the vaccination rates are really low in the French islands, in Guadeloupe and Martinique. So that's a little disappointing.
The French islands are also taking their cues from the EU, and the EU is getting very focused on COVID passports and vaccination. In the EU, there's a lot more ability to move from one country to another as a vaccinated person, and movement is all but impossible to some countries without proof of vaccination. Another question is, we're staying at Jolly Harbor. Should we plan on initially arriving at Nelson, then moving our boat? Absolutely. Jolly Harbor will have a few boats perhaps that mostly that are there perhaps earlier in the season. Nothing will be going on there, and it's quite a cab ride to come around. So virtually everyone comes to English Harbor. Currently, the only place to clear in is English Harbor. You have to go in and anchor. Someone comes out, checks your credentials, make sure you have your proper paperwork, and then you're cleared to go. And then people will generally tie up in English Harbor or anchor out and then move later maybe over to Falmouth. Let's see. Oh, here's one. Do we need nice clothes for some of the events? Sport jacket for men. I guess you're a member of some yacht clubs. No, it's very casual in the Caribbean. However, when you go to customs, it's a pretty formal country, and you do not want to wear, cut off jeans or you want to look the part, because they'll be dressed in uniforms. But nice clothes, well, a nice pair of shorts and a nice collared shirt, ideally maybe with Salty Dog logo on it, or the logo of your boat would be definitely the way to go.
I would just add also about the formality stuff is the friendly aspect is make sure that you always say good morning, good afternoon, good day, good evening. Pretty much everywhere on the islands. It's just a really nice thing to start a conversation.
Yeah, the English island, Antigua is a very formal island. The French islands are a little more open to expression, like not wearing clothes. You can always tell if a boat is from France or from Germany because no one's wearing clothes. And but in the English islands, that is definitely a no-no. Things are pretty casual in the Caribbean, whether you're going to a fancy restaurant or just going out for jerk chicken. It pretty much anything goes. Well, obviously, when we come to the island, especially early in the season, everybody knows it because the Salty Dogs are the first to show up. We show up in mass, and they'll know you're there. They even organize activities around us. For example, there's a local gallery called Rhythm of Blue, and Nancy actually organizes a opening party in conjunction with us and hires a band, a reggae band, and offers free rum punch just to get people to come to her gallery. So when the Salty Dogs arrive, everybody's clapping. Let's see. Let's see. There's a question here about signing up for crew, which is an excellent question. Both getting crew and signing up for crew is very easy to do with Salty Dog. We offer a crew service for anyone who's a paid participant. And you can sign up on the website without being a member of Salty Dog, but you do pay a modest fee to be included in the list. You should be able to find that right on the, and every boat will need crew. In fact, my insurance company, I'm in the process of going through that this year. And I encourage any of you who have not begun that process to do so, because, for example, Pandora is a 2006, and I've owned her for about 6 years, and they wanted a new survey. And I think it's actually a good idea to do that because they pick up on things you might not have noticed. But they're asking for questions like the age of my standing rigging and so forth, and even asking me for the individual names of crew members and their experience. The availability of insurance to go to the Caribbean is more difficult than it's been because of the history of hurricanes over the last few years, but it is available. And while it may be a little more than you want to spend, it is possible. But whether you go to I'm actually working with Geico and then with a broker myself, and we'll figure that out. Let's see, there was a question about would we leave if there was a named storm off of Florida and the Caribbean? That's a difficult question to answer. Probably no. because by that point, it's on its way up the East Coast. But what we work very closely, generally from the time that a low forms off of Africa and starts moving to the west, Chris Parker's tracking it. And in fact, while you get access to Chris Parker's activity for the rally, I would encourage you to join Chris's. It's not very expensive. It's $300 for the whole year. And start now, start participating in his morning webinars just to get an understanding of what's going on with the weather. And also, as tropical activity occurs, he sends out daily, sometimes several times a day, tropical updates to let you understand it. And I've been following Chris's weather now for basically for 10 years. And for the first few years, it was a little bit of a head scratcher. It's complicated stuff. So I would encourage you to subscribe, even though you'll get that with the rally as part of your fee. It's a very good thing to understand, because the weather is, aside from the having a boat that's prepared and crew that's in good shape, it's about the most important thing you can consider focusing on.
So I'm gonna jump in and take the next insurance company question, if you don't mind, Bob. So could you please recommend an So the other hat that I wear as a volunteer is on the sponsor side. And this is a good time to mention that we have some very great sponsors. And if you go on the website, I really recommend that kind of question can be answered. But the short answer is Jack Morton is an insurance company that is a sponsor, a great sponsor of ours. Morgan Wells is the contact, and you can shoot an email. He is very available, and he is eager to give you great recommendations. So what is the website I see? So that's our website, the Salty Dog Sailing Association's website, which is Bob, saltydogsailing.org. I got that right. So on the sponsors, click on the sponsors and get a comfort with all of the sponsors. In many cases, there are some great deals to be had. Quantum Sales, 15% off if you're a member. Great opportunity. Other companies offer just personal assistance, and that's true of the insurance recommendations. So that's my hat on for sponsors recommendations.
That's great, Bennett. And speaking of that, I was talking to Quantum just the other day, because we had a member in the spring who had in-mast furling, and they had a lot of trouble with it, and they ended up having to get towed into Beaufort by the Coast Guard, and their boat got quite banged up. One of the things you're going to want to have, if you have a Beneteau or any other boat that might have come with in-mast furling, you're going to want to talk to the folks at Quantum about things to think about to make sure that your system is set up right. Because often, for example, the tabbing that holds that block to the back of the sail is not covered with any kind of a really good sun cover. And so sometimes it'll rip out. And according to Dave Flynn, he said that losing the clue on roller furling is a fairly, in-mast furling is a fairly common failure. And which brings me to the point of, when you're thinking about a trip like this, if it's fairly new to you, there's a lot of things to consider that can break when you're suddenly moving for 2 weeks. And I encourage you to look at the various webinars, of which there are several dozen that we have done over the last 6 months, that you can get answers to an awful lot of questions from experts that have taken the time to spend an hour taping information on everything from heavy weather prep to how to manage a catamaran in heavy conditions, picking the right sail inventory, and so forth and so on. So there's a lot of moving parts, that things that can go wrong. And when you go offshore, you want to do everything you can to keep stuff from breaking. So let's just check, see if there's any other questions. Let's see. I guess what I'll say at this point, does anybody have any additional questions? Or Hank, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Well, I just noticed there was one there, Bob's, that came up a couple of times asking if there's going to be a similar discussion on the Bahamas.
Yes, actually, I direct messaged him back, or maybe I didn't get everybody. We don't have one scheduled yet. We have someone who's responsible for the Bahamas. One way or the other, we will schedule that. If you sign up to be part of our newsletter activity, we have some 4,000 people on that list. And anytime we have an important program like that, we send a note out to everyone. And while some of our webinars are available only to people who pay a fee or are members, things like a Bahamas briefing or tonight's activity, a discussion are free to anybody that wants to come. So sign up and you'll get a message about it.
And then one for Bennett, someone suggesting that as things get closer, maybe identify which vaccinations are valid in Antigua.
Yeah, sure. Like for many of these COVID related variables, the website and Taj's mailings and Bob's mailings, and they'll be updated in real time. So they're going to change. There's no question that there's going to be subtleties. We'll provide the information as best as we can throughout the whole process.
Having just gotten back from the main rally, I would say that the question of vaccination came up quite frequently. And it seems to me that the cruising community is very focused on that. Everybody realizes that if you get sick offshore, it would not go well. Another question is, when did the event start in Antigua? I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. Generally around the 14th of the month, we try to allow 2 weeks for everyone to get down there. We'll be announcing an exact lineup with specific dates in the next week or so. And then suggestions on how to get a boat inspected for the trip. That's a very good question. You know, everyone spends whatever they have to spend to get a boat surveyed when they buy it. But sometimes after they've owned it for a while, they don't think about that. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, it's easy to overlook something that you've been looking at for a while and say, well, I'll fix that next year. It took me 3.5 hours to figure out how to fix my bilge pump. I thought it was a broken pump. It turned out it was a cruddy wire, but it was totally worth doing. Two thoughts. One is the getting the boat professionally inspected by a registered surveyor or an accredited surveyor. But I think equally important, maybe even more important, is to get your rig inspected. And I recommend you go to a good rigger. There's an excellent one in Annapolis. Steve at what's the rigger?
Yacht.
Yacht. He does a wonderful job. He's a terrific supporter. I had him replace rigging on my last boat, and it's really worth doing. You might find you're going to spend money on something that you didn't expect. And let me just give you an example of that. A few years ago, I was considering what to do about going to the British Virgin Islands, and I have rod rigging on my boat, which wasn't all that old, and I decided to have it inspected. They pulled it off. And lo and behold, there was a crack in the primary. There's like a donut, like a mushroom at the top of rod rigging that holds it into the fitting. And they found a hairline crack when they fluxed it. And I could very well have lost my rig if the wind got tough. So there, you just don't know, and nothing will wreck your day like having your mast fall over. And the name of the rigger is Yacht Services in Annapolis. Steve is the owner, and I would highly recommend them. Again, as Bennett said, they're listed under our sponsors, and he has done webinars. I believe there's a rig webinar there too. But things like chain plates and stuff like that are hidden, you'd be horrified to see what some of the stuff he's uncovered on boats that were basically well maintained.
Bob, the other thing would be, of course, getting the sails inspected, and that's something that members of the Sailing Association get for free if you go to Quantum Sails, and the contact there is Dave Flynn. Again, info on our website. And
in terms of buying sails from Dave, I actually just bought a main. And the way it works is whatever the prevailing price is on their price list, which fluctuates based upon the time of the year, you get 15% off. Dave, I was delighted by the new main I got. It had some features that I didn't even expect, like Kevlar straps to protect the battens from chafing on the gear. I'd never seen that on a sail before. And Dave, actually, I live in Connecticut, and he drove all the way from Annapolis to Connecticut and delivered my sail, put it on the boat, set up all the reefs, and then drove home. It took him an entire day, 12 hours of driving. And I said, Dave, are you doing this because I'm rally director? And he said, well, we want you to be happy, but no, I do it all the time. That you really can't beat that kind of service. He works very hard for us.
So my main came in a box. I'm not sure how that happened. Dave didn't drive mine up, but I do want to tell you, it was a great savings. There's a specific route you need to go on the websites on there, but don't go to the Quantum Loft first and talk to them, negotiate, and then go back. But what Dave wants you to do is email Dave. It's on the website. And get his take on, you can go to whatever loft you want. He will recommend lofts for you. If you need recommendations, he will get you into the right place. But to get the 15%, the true 15% members offer, you do have to go through Dave, and the instructions are on the website, as we've been saying.
And by that, you mean, Bennett, that we just need to contact Dave. We don't have to do business with Dave in Annapolis. Right. It just gets started there, and then he gets you linked up with your local Quantum Loft.
Exactly.
That's great. Well, thank you, Hank, and thank you, Bennett, for your preparation on this. And we're going to be spending quite a bit of time. We have several people that we're dealing with. I have a contact in Antigua who is close to the government and is keeping me up to date on a regular basis. There is no question that in the Caribbean, if you're vaccinated, life is going to be easier. The fact is that there's a lot of people down there that are not vaccinated, and how this is all going to unfold is really hard to tell. And we would all have liked to have had clear direction for you now, but unfortunately, we just don't. What I will say, though, is a year ago at this time, we had no idea, and it frustrated the heck out of everybody. And basically last winter, everybody just sort of hung out in Antigua for the whole season. They had a great time, they really did, but very few people even left the island until the end of the season when they went up to, say, the American Virgins to clear into the U.S. Having been in the islands when the pandemic struck, I was in St. Lucia. Being there and forced to quarantine, of course, at that point, nobody had the ability to get vaccinated. It was not fun. It was really awful. And to be shadowed by a warship as we went past the French islands to make sure we didn't go ashore, and then to be in a position where literally my wife Brenda was off the boat a single time in 2 months. It was very tough. But this seems like we're turning the corner. And the fact that the islands were open last winter, although with a lot of complexity, certainly suggests that there should be no problem in going to the islands this fall. The question is, of course, how easy it will be between the islands. And it looks like things are moving in the direction of easier going from one island to another. But even if you ended up not going to as many places as you might historically, there's plenty to do in Antigua, with many places to visit. And Barbuda is really a beautiful island with probably one of the longest sandy beaches in the entire Caribbean. So with that in mind, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to me if you have specific questions. I don't mind. I like talking on the phone. Emails are great. And don't forget the forum. And I really hope that we see you in the Caribbean. Our main rally was double the size of our biggest year. And right now we're running ahead of any year in recent memory in terms of signups. So one final point I will make is there are uncertainties. There's uncertainties about maybe those of you that may be anxious about getting a vaccination, or may have circumstances that we can't anticipate that might keep you from being able to go. So we're going to be pretty liberal about refunds. So my recommendation is sign up now, pay the fee, get access to everything you need to make a proper decision, and we will work with you if for some reason you're unable to go. With that in mind, I'll wrap it up. And if you have any final thoughts, Hank or Bennett, before we break.
I think you covered it well. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I hope that this year we have biggest rally to Antigua yet. I know they're excited to see us. It's been a difficult time for them, and being up here in the north without being able to see family and friends until things begin. It's going to feel great to head back to the Caribbean again. So everyone have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm excited. I cannot wait to go.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks everyone for attending today. There will be a recording available. I will get that out to you. Everybody have a good evening.
Take care.